Hello everybody and welcome to the Fortress of Solitude. This week we're going to look at The Ultimates issue 8 by Dennis Camp, Juan Frigeri and Federico Blee. A new group of heroes joins the Ultimates fight for the future as Doom directs the Ultimates to an empty field where his tachyon particle readings suggest something will appear at a very specific moment in time. The team aren't convinced something is coming, but America can sense it as a giant ship suddenly appears, crashing into the field. Inside the ship are the Guardians of the Galaxy, who have traversed the entire length of time to arrive right at this moment. Camp wastes no time introducing us to the new and different Guardians team, first with Captain Marvel, who spouts out a bunch of Grant Morrison level sci-fi nonsense, all of which I adore when comics do this sort of stuff. It's cool when creators can actually be creative with this stuff, and Camp does a great job with all the talk about turning the negative zone into the positive zone and fighting the Ultron Dominion by going through the Infinity Prism. It's just pure comic book schlock. The team are glad to have found America, as it turns out the woman is actually part of the Guardians and one of their most decorated members. Captain Marvel quickly tries to forcibly take America back with them, and Captain America gets involved, prompting Marvel to attack Steve, getting rather hostile towards him and the Ultimates, which leads to an all-out brawl between both teams. During this brawl, we are introduced to the other members of the Guardians, like Star-Lord, who is a literal Star-Lord and leader of the 12 houses and land beyond the sun. Star-Lord uses his powers to disrupt the sizes of Wasp and Ant-Man, warping their reality around them. She-Hulk meanwhile battles the Ultimate Nullifier, the killer of Mephisto, who uses his special zero-point gun to zero out the Hulk's kinetic energy, freezing her in place. The final member of the team is Cosmo Starstalker, a dog who stayed behind to protect humanity after all other dogs ascended to a higher state of being, making him, as Captain Marvel calls him, the ultimate good boy. The team is already really so much fun, and Camp adapting things we've seen in every past Guardians team since their creation, while also adding his own flair, is so neat. Like, we never actually saw the Ultimate Guardians in the original Ultimate run, so this is kind of uncharted territory in terms of like what they can do with these characters, and so far it's just so completely different than what I was expecting. The big thing I like is that they have made the team visually different than what we usually see. Like, usually if you say Star-Lord, you get like what the movies look like, you know, the helmet, the coat and everything, or like the, you know, the Dan Abnett stuff. But here, Star-Lord just looked completely different, and I like that. It looks like we're not adapting things we've seen in that main continuity. Like, Star-Lord doesn't look like he's the Prince of Spartax, you know, or he's not like the old school Star-Lord with the blue costume and like the big bug eyes and everything. It's completely new and different. As the team fight, America tells Captain Marvel that she doesn't remember the team at all, so Cosmo invades her mind, learning that she was experimented on when she arrived on Earth and parts of her memory were cut out in quite a violent manner. Cosmo's unwarranted poking around causes America to attack, unleashing a huge energy wave which ends the battle pretty quickly. Cosmo does apologize for the intrusion, but the team need to know what they all face, since they are all having the same dream, showing them all dying at the hands of Hulk. While the battle has died down, Doom uses his Doombot to sneak aboard the Guardian ship, where he's confronted by Star-Lord, who finds something familiar yet dangerous about Doom. We get to see more of Star-Lord's powers, and I love how he can manipulate reality itself seemingly. He's allowed Doom to see him through the drone, and then he somehow manages to appear in Doom's satellite through the TV. Like, it's so cool, so different than what we usually get. Usually Star-Lord, you know, has just like the element guns and like that's it. Star-Lord makes it known that America belongs to them and the team should not interfere with them. He also fuels my theory that it's Doom who becomes Kang, or the Kang we saw in Ultimate Invasion, not Tony, as Star-Lord remembers the man in the Iron Mask and the man in the Iron Lung, which is what Tony is in at the moment, but he can't remember which one of them will kill trillions and which one will save everything. I think we will get the twist in the Kang story where Reed is the one who becomes Kang, since it makes more sense. It keeps it more in line with the whole Kang Richards family sort of dynamic. It makes sense in that regard. It makes sense as well of what we've seen with this Reed Richards this doom, where this would be a way he might have been able to help his family and his friends and find redemption in not being able to help them the first time round. That being said, all of that can almost also be applied to Tony as well, where Tony wants to atone for the sins of his father, since his father was part of this cabal with Stain, so he might want to, try and fix the world from what his father had made it into. So it could definitely be either of these characters, though I'm more thinking that it's going to be Doom who ends up being the Kang. Another kind of silly, but it kind of makes sense to me, is that the Maker is no longer going by the name the Maker, at least by what the Guardians call him. The Guardians call him the Unmaker, because obviously he unmade their universe. So I could see Reed, Doom coming back and taking the name the Maker and making it into something as a force for good, something that actually makes, not destroys. While Doom reckons with a possible future for him and Tony Stark, Captain Marvel shows America her life, specifically her life with the Captain and how they were together romantically. During all of this, the rest of the Guardians' story is revealed, as in the 61st century, 500,000 heroes were part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and they kept the universe safe for a millennia, much like the Legion of Superheroes over at DC. But then Captain Universe felt something radiating from the 21st century, so the team made up of the most experienced Guardians, which also happened to be parts of the very first Guardians of the Galaxy team, so people like Yondu, Martin X, and Starhawk, were sent back in time to investigate, with only Martin X making it back to the 61st century, only to die just before issuing a warning from the Unmaker. Camp builds on Hickman's work of the Maker invading this world and changing things is so damn good, and it fits nicely in with what we already know and have seen in the Ultimate Invasion book of him arriving in this world and just starting to change things in like 60 odd time period in the 21st century. Camp does up the ante though, as he reveals that thanks to knowing that the past has been changed, the Guardians move to save their future, because as the past has changed, the future will not have existed, so a cascade effect starts to happen and starts eating through the already preset timeline, so it's basically resetting it, and they don't want that to happen to their universe. So they end up creating a century ship, an arc that surrounds the entirety of the 61st century, which is then sealed off and shot off into the superflow, which is the space between spaces, kind of like the bleed over in the DC universe. While the heroes thought they were safe though, they ended up battling Kang's clone army he had waiting just outside of time, the same army we actually saw at the end of the Ultimate Invasion, the one that's all of like the Captain America and Giant Man clones. While battling the clones, the 61-6 universe died, tearing itself apart thanks to what the Maker did in the 21st century, and we get loads more wacky comic book schlock as well, like apart from like a century ship capturing a whole millennia of time and keeping it safe. Like that's so interesting and wacky and cool. It's so damn awesome. We get more stuff like that here as we learn that the 10 billion descendants of Bruce Banner, which as a collective were dubbed the Planet Hulk, fight back the literal death of reality with their bare hands, which is a really neat panel as well by One Frigeri, where all of these Hulks are kind of like throwing themselves against like a blank panel and it's just like eating them all away into nothing. It's just so interestingly creative on like how to show like something being erased from reality. We also learned that Galactus is now a bloated corpse who was once in this universe the life bringer, and the life giver of universes is now the death bringer, and his body is now filled with a nest of monsters that spew out of every orifice of his when he comes near a world and just eats up different worlds. Despite America and the Guardians doing their best to hold onto the Ark and hold it together, the ship explodes when it hits solid reality, scattering the Guardians across time and space, with only a few surviving, like Captain Marvel, who was stranded in the Stone Age until she was able to build a ship out of the wreckage of the Century Arc and come and look for survivors. Camp also reveals that while the heroes couldn't just come right to America, and that is because she was lost in a piece of time that was covered in a 62-year hard time bubble, which just covered the 21st century, and this is when the Maker started messing with the time, which caused the 61st century to be destroyed, thanks to him hardening the time around this, and it only just ended thanks to the Maker being imprisoned in Latveria by Kang, which we saw in Ultimate Invasion. The hard time bubble is a neat idea, since if at any point Camp or any other writers want to go back through the history of Earth 6160, there's this 62-year, hard time bubble that they can explore in where there's no heroes per se, and you can see a lot more of the strange dark world stuff the Maker has created in this timeline. I think that's a really neat idea. It gives them a little bit more creative freedom, I think. Thanks to America's reality warping powers, she was able to punch through this hard time bubble and land within it, hence why the Guardians weren't able to find her until this very moment, which was when the time bubble collapsed and Cosmo was able to capture her scent, and they were able to come back through time to find her. Marvel reveals that once all of the Guardians have been found, they will undo the Unmaker's work and restore their timeline. However, to also ensure this new timeline where the heroes finally started appearing and all of these people have new lives that they like, they will also save that as well in a different time bubble that will run concurrently with their own. Interestingly, America refuses to actually join the team she was supposedly once on, knowing that while she and Marvel definitely shared some beautiful memories, they were the captain's memories, not hers, and she doesn't know that woman anymore. But she knows that this time and place she cannot leave, since her friends are here fighting the Maker and she doesn't want them fighting alone in 10 months. I quite like this twist in the story where you'd expect her to be like, yeah, let's get together and we'll work it all out, we'll be the Guardians and we'll go off and into our own book or adventures. And America just does the opposite of that, which is really quite cool. And again, this is the Ultimate Universe, stuff like that can happen. It also follows a really interesting through line with all of the Ultimate stuff, whereas no matter what happens, the heroes do all their own thing and become heroes under their own terms and not some set paths like we saw in 1 year in, where no matter what would happen, heroes would always emerge. And that's what we're seeing here. Heroes are starting to emerge and America is one of those heroes. Captain Marvel isn't too happy with that, since the heroes of this time all die thanks to the Unmaker, but America knows nothing is certain, nothing is set in stone, the future is not written yet, and the Ultimates can change the future. They just need a chance to try, they just need a little bit of hope. Marvel decides to leave America in the present day, gifting her a special beacon which will call the Guardians of the Galaxy if they ever need help in the present. I think this is the Chekhov's gun of the issue. This is the big linchpin on top of the heroes forging their own path. It's an unknown factor since the Guardians weren't around during the first fight with Maker, and this time I can see them changing the tide of war by being involved. All of time has come for the Unmaker now. The Guardians leave the timeline having changed the Ultimate's outlook on their universe, and in Doom's case, left him with an existential crisis, since he doesn't know if he dooms the world and Tony saves everything, or he saves everything and Tony dooms the world. With 10 months remaining, he'll have a bit of time to explore that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Camp and his teams have in store for Doom and Tony going forward. Ultimates Issue 8 again changed the game so wildly from what we are used to. The new Guardians of the Galaxy are really creative, surprising swings on some classic characters. Camp getting to build out and explore the cosmic side of Earth 6160, even if it was through some Morrison-level sci-fi nonsense dialogue, was a lot of fun, and tying the Guardians' journey into the throughline message of the Ultimate Universe about making your own path and the future is never set in stone is just so wonderful, and I can't wait to see more of them and more of who is on the team, since as alluded to in this book, that was not the full team of Guardians we saw. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.